Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 5 articles in this episode for you, and all these URLs, of course, are in the description of the video for your convenience. First one here is off of Breitbart, and if I can get it to come up here we go. It says Merkel will pay migrants close to, or try this again, Merkel will pay migrants millions to leave Germany. Chancellor Angela Merkel is setting aside 90 million, I guess that's euros, in taxpayer money to create a fund which will pay migrants to withdraw their asylum applications and leave Germany voluntarily. The handouts will form part of a 16-point plan to speed up the removal of rejected asylum seekers after Tunisian migrant Anis Amiri murdered a Polish lorry driver, hijacked his vehicle, and drove it into a Christmas market in Berlin while awaiting deportation. U.S. President Donald Trump told the Times that Merkel made a catastrophic mistake when she opened up the doors to an unlimited number of migrants in 2015. Her vice chancellor, Sigmar Gabriel, later admitted his superior had how difficult it would be to integrate migrants on such a grand scale, and that Germany had been plunged into a culture camp war as a result. Germany rejected 170,000 asylum claims in 2016, but according to the Mail, just 26,000 were reparated. 55,000 more decided to leave voluntarily, apparently leaving 81,000 bogus applicants unaccounted for. We rely heavily on voluntary departures, admitted Chancellor Merkel, who was announcing the package after falling behind the Social Democrats in polls for Germany's upcoming elections. Martin Schulz, the former president of the European Parliament, who has been nominated as the Social Democrat challenger to Merkel, said he backed the proposals to speed up deportations. Schulz has previously insisted that the people who are arriving in Europe are refugees who have been threatened, and we should welcome them. A statement which is at odds with Vice President of the European Commission's admission that at least 60% are economic migrants. As leading figure in the European Union, Schulz was a strong supporter of the compulsory migrant quotas. These were forced through by a bloc despite strong opposition from Central and Eastern European member states, which did not agree with Germany's unilateral decision to throw open the borders. Strongly at these countries in 2015, accusing them of national egotism in its purest form. Polish Interior Minister Mariusz Balazak described at Schulz's words as an example of German arrogance. The next one I have is off of BizPack Review, and it says California's Islamic school rejects $800,000 grant from Trump administration. California Islamic school Brian Claremont, founded by Jihad Turk, rejected an offer of $800,000 from the Trump administration to combat extremism. Brian Claremont is an Islamic graduate school privately held and located in Claremont, California, decided Friday evening to reject the funds because of President Donald Trump's temporary travel suspension from 7 terror-connected countries and his obsessive focus on Islamic extremism, the Associated Press reports. Come from a program established under former President Barack Obama called Counter-Violence Extremism. Brian's move makes it the 4th Islamic institution to say no to federal government funds under the Trump administration. There was considerable internal debate about whether to accept the funds, but Turk said that grant is a heck of a lot of money. Our mission and our vision is to serve the community and to bring our community to a position of excellence. And if we compromised, even if only by the perception in terms of our standing in the community, we ultimately can achieve that goal, Turk added. Turk also noted that the concerns expressed by the CVE program expressed during the Obama administration's tenure, as school officials did not believe the mere presence of extremist ideology alone necessitated a clear path. Rather, Turk has a different conception of the relationship between religion and acts of terror. In March of 2016, Turk took part in a forum extremism and said that as far as he's concerned, what often looks like religiously motivated terror is often reducible to identify politics or struggles over territory. There's no justification in religion to do these immoral acts, Turk said. It's really not what's going on the ground there, and it's much more complicated conversation. Terror attack in Orlando on the Pulse gay nightclub, Turk said in an interview in 2016 that law enforcement cannot predict all so-called lone wolf attacks. Turk said could be prevented with love and that the country should try to foster an environment of inclusion, which can be hard as many Americans don't know many Muslims. The program would have covered half of Brian's yearly budget. The next article that we have here is off of westernjournalism.com. It says Clinton lands a jab, Conway comes back with a knockout blow. If her failed presidential campaign was still alive, Hillary Clinton took on Thursday night to rejoice over a court decision that stymied President Donald Trump's executive order to limit travel from nations with incidents of terrorism. And she tweets 3-0. Referring to the unanimous decision of the Federal Appeals Court, a decision Trump has said he will appeal in his effort to bar potential terrorists from entering the U.S. To troll Trump was met by a zinger from White House counselor Kellyanne Conway, who was Trump's campaign manager, and she tweets back, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Referring to the states Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan that traditionally supported Democratic candidates, but instead supported Trump last November, helping him secure the presidency. Twitter gleefully enjoyed seeing Clinton deflated. One says, Hillary Clinton, no, not 3-0. It's Trump 1, Clinton 0, Senate 52-42, House 241, 194. You're a loser, not just of elections. Another one says, Hillary Clinton, 306-232 is the only number that counts where you're concerned. Sit down. Another one says, so in your world of winning, Hillary Clinton, you once again have put every American at risk. Sounds familiar to you, Benghazi? The next one we have here, I think that goes for you live in a glass house, don't be flinging stones, don't it? DNA saves Michigan service dog from the death penalty. And get this to cooperate with me here. There's some video in this if you want to take a look at it. It says, in St. Clair, Michigan, Jeb, a much-loved service dog for an elderly man, was locked up in animal control when the judge's verdict came in. He would be put neighbor's dog. Jeb's owners, Penny and Kenneth Job, couldn't believe their sweet Jeb, the same gentle dog who helps Ken get up when he falls down, who lives peacefully with 3 other dogs, 7 cats, and a coop full of chickens, could ever harm another living being. So the family used a forensic technique often used for human defendants to save their dog from death row last fall. Job stands hip high with muscular frame, big dark eyes, and a long black snout. He's had a rough 2 years on this earth. In January of 2016, when he wasn't quite a year old, he was found chained inside a shed in Detroit. His owner had died, and the rest of the family didn't want him. Candy Morrison, a volunteer with the dog rescue agency, got the call. Jeb, she thought he'd make the perfect service dog for her father. That's Kenneth Job. Job, age 79, an Air Force vet who owns a drywall business, has a neurodegenerative disease called tooth. He fell in love with the Belgian Malinois puppy. Dr. Karen Pidlick, their veterinarian and neighbor in the rural Michigan town, trained Jeb to help Job stay steady on his shaky legs. The family was happy one until 8 months later. According to court testimony on the morning of August the 24th, Christopher Swawa looked out his kitchen window and saw Jeb standing over the lifeless body of his own dog, Vlad. Vlad weighed 14 pounds. Jeb weighed 90 pounds. Schwa run out to his yard. He tried to give Vlad mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but was too late. The tiny Pomeranian was dead. Schwa called animal control and blamed Jeb. Control took the big dog into custody. On September the 19th, all parties gathered at district court in St. Clair County. If Judge Michael Hulwitz deemed Jeb a dangerous animal, the dog would be put to death. Schwa, the Job's neighbor for more than 30 years, testified about finding Jeb standing over his dead Pomeranian. It was horrifying, it was terrifying, he said, according to the transcripts. He said it wasn't the first time Jeb had scared him. I was afraid of the dog. The dog always barked, he said. Now his beloved Vlad was gone. Children, he testified, the dog was like a child to us. Job testified that Jeb had gotten away from him that morning. He and Job's other 3 dogs had run off in the opposite direction of the Schwa home toward a house with a pond where they like to swim. Job's attorney, Edward Marshall, pointed to a lack of physical evidence linking Jeb to Vlad's death and questioning whether the dog, or try this again, whether another large animal had killed Vlad. After all, testified that an unfriendly stray dog had been spotted in the neighborhood and foxes were known to live around the surrounding woods. In the end, the judge said Jeb met the legal definition of a dangerous animal and he made what he said was a tough decision. No choice except to follow the and that animal would be destroyed. Holwitz said, I don't like to do this. I don't like it at all. And that's when the Job family asked to have testing done to see whether Jeb's DNA matched the DNA in Vlad's wound. They said they hadn't asked for it sooner because they thought Vlad had been cremated and there would be no way to get his DNA. But it came out that Vlad's body was in the freezer. The Jobs arranged to have swabs taken from Vlad's wound and inside of Jeb's cheek. The samples were sent to Maple Center for Forensic Medicine at the University of Florida's College of Medicine. The process cost $416, according to the Jobs. On 24th, Anne Marie Clark, a forensic DNA analysis at the center, sent in her findings. The DNA in the wound didn't match Jeb's DNA. Jeb is not the dog that killed Vlad, Clark wrote. We were relieved. We were absolutely relieved, said Penny Job, Ken's wife. The DNA showed that another dog had killed Jeb. But exactly who that dog is may forever be a mystery. Dogs have no rights. Jeb was allowed to go home the next week after his owners signed an agreement promising they would make sure Jeb wouldn't leave the yard unleashed and that they would maintain a secure fence to keep their animals in their yard. The Jobs say Jeb a different dog. They say that during his 9 weeks in animal control, he went from 90 pounds to 75 pounds and he became scared and skittish. The dog was thin and sick, Penny Job said, and he lost all his social skills. He was afraid to go outside. Jeb's weight wasn't taken when he entered and left the animal control, said Stephen Campayu, a spokesman for the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office, which oversees animal control. We fed him a meal a day, Campu said, and maybe did at home. Campu also said some behavior changes are to be expected after an animal is released from spending 9 weeks of spending 23 hours a day in a kennel that's 6 feet long by 3 feet. Veterinarians say after a dog is in a kennel environment for an extended period of time, there's certainly going to be an adjustment period when it gets out. Even now, more than 3 months after his return home, Jeb is still scared of strange men, his owners say. Still bitter that their innocent dog was nearly put to death, Jeb's owner wonders why they had to come up with the idea of DNA analysis. Why didn't the court do it before condemning Jeb to death? After all, that kind of testing is often done with human defendants. The answer is simple, according to David Favre, a professor at the Michigan College of Law and editor-in-chief of the Animal Legal and Historical Center. Humans accused of a crime have rights under criminal due process. In a criminal prosecution where you're putting a person in jail, we have the highest level of protection, Favre said. And it's a different story with dogs. Dogs have no rights, they're property, Favre said. He wonders whether the courts would reconsider and make DNA analysis a regular part of the process when a dog's life hangs in the balance. It's an easy thing to do, we just haven't thought of it in this context, he said. He applauded the jobs for saving their pet. Will realize they can do this, that it's a tool, he said. They used a very creative defense. There you have that. The next one we have is off of Natural News. It says, thousands of dead bees wash up on Florida's beach. Strange new phenomenon has taken place in the beaches of Naples, Florida, where since February the 7th, beachgoers have been astounded to find thousands of dead bees along the shoreline. A bee expert told NBC affiliate WBBH-TV that it is incredibly unusual to have bees washing up on the beach. He offered two possible reasons for the strange occurrence. One, that the bees could have been affected by the nearby spraying of chemical pesticides, or two, that an overhead swarm simply became exhausted and flew into the water. Though the latter explanation is certainly possible, the former is far more likely, since the death of these bees is by no means an isolated occurrence, and the blame can be laid squarely at the door of chemical pesticides. Pesticides called neonicotinoids, or neonics, as they are commonly known, are routinely used in monocultures and chemical-based agriculture to keep insects off crops. Neonics are sprayed both directly onto crops and used as seed coating. Almost all the corn and canola seed in the U.S. are sprayed with these dangerous chemicals. Attack the central nervous system of insects, including bees, by binding to their enzyme neotinic acetylchlorine receptors. This excites their nerves, eventually paralyzing and killing them. Neonicotinoids are systematic pesticides, meaning they are taken up right into the plant, affecting every part, including the roots, stem, leaves, and flowers, as well as the pollen and nectar. These pesticides have put the very survival of bees and other pollinators at risk. As tragic as this is for bees themselves, it also puts the very survival of humans at risk, since we are reliant on bees and other pollinators for much of our food production. According to the National Resources Defense Council, honeybees alone pollinate over $15 billion worth of U.S. food crops each year. While many activists are trying to turn the situation around with petitions to curtail the use of pesticides, far bigger and more urgent steps need to be taken to save the bees. Through the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, has acknowledged detrimental effects of the three most common types of neonics, and it lists them. They got big old long names. One's clothianidin, I think, and thiamexicam, and dinofuran on bee populations. It has thus far refused to place restrictions on their use. As long as the EPA continues to greenlight the use of these dangerous chemicals, it will be almost impossible to win this important battle. Though we individually may not be able to affect national change, there are small changes each of us can make in our own home garden to create a welcoming and bee-friendly environment. After all, 300 million American gardens could provide a safe haven for billions of bees. And there's a video in this called Plant Pollination Encouraging Bees into Your Garden, if you would like to take a look at that and get some ideas. It says some tips for establishing a bee-friendly garden. Number one, choose bee-friendly flowers rich in pollen and nectar and stagger their planting to attract bees year-round. Early bloomers, including willows, hawthorn, and blossoms of fruit trees. In summer, bees will be attracted to clover, caluenda, and borage, among others. And late bloomers include aster, echinacea, and common ivy. Plant your bee-friendly plants in the sunniest part of the garden. Allow some areas of your garden to grow wild with no mowing, weeding, etc. This will allow space for dandelions and thistles, which are a rich source of both nectar and pollen. Protect the bees' habitat in your garden by being careful not to disturb their nests or hibernation sites. Make sure that your garden is organic. Avoid the use of all chemical pesticides and weed killers. With more and more species of bees becoming extinct, their survival truly is hanging in the balance. We all need to work together to turn this situation around. Spring is coming very, very soon now. It's time to think about your gardens and what you're going to plant, and keep your bees in mind when you're all together. Might put up some flowering plants so that the bees have a place to go as well. If you like what I'm doing here, be sure and give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to enjoy the news. And if you haven't subscribed yet, that way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.